Hi, I'm Christy Cordingley, and this is my show, The Flare Up Show, and this special episode is produced in partnership with Clarissa Burt and In the Limelight Media. I originally created this show to advocate for myself through chronic illness, but today it's grown into a wellness show that's listened to all over the world. I love to practice well-being for the whole being. So if you're ready to rise, thrive, and elevate your life, stay tuned, enjoy the show, and thanks for listening. Hi, welcome to the Flare Up Show, which is produced by Clarissa Bird and In the Limelight Media. And today I have a very special guest all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. So we have Annie McCune. Did I pronounce that correctly? That's one thing I forgot to ask.
Absolutely right.
Perfect. She grew up in a large and loving family in West New York. She graduated from Dartmouth College with a degree in geography and urban studies and has a certificate in executive leadership. She's a wife, mother, and grandmother, including international children and grandchildren from Kyrgyzstan and Afghanistan. Her book, Practicing Hospitality, The Joy and Grace of Loving Strangers, shares some of her stories of being both a guest in need of the kindness of strangers and host to those who needed hospitality in convenient and inconvenient ways. She is delighted to encourage others to understand we don't need Pinterest perfect homes or meals. Thank goodness, to be hospitable to those around us. She has served on many boards, including public school boards, the Buffalo Olmsted Parks Conservancy, and the Eleazar Wheelock Society, Dartmouth College, and helped run events that have had city, state, and worldwide impact. In her spare time, she enjoys walking, travel, gardens, birds, redemptive stories, I love resilience, and practicing hospitality with those who show up at her door. Just welcome to the show, Annie.
Thank you, Chrissy. So delighted to be here with you.
Me too. I'm really excited. I had to giggle at the very first paragraph in your book because you talk about in hospitality that we're supposed to love strangers like our family and treat them like family. And then you said a line like, that's a lot to ask because that assumes we love our family. And I had such a little giggle about that. That was so cheeky, but so true, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but the book has just a really lovely tone. It's very warm and loving and engaging. So, how did you come about discovering the true meaning of hospitality?
Well, I started writing the book for my children and grandchildren because we had had so many amazing opportunities when we opened our door, and just it was such a beautiful thing. And I noticed that my children have all become very hospitable, but now with 12 of my own grandkids and then all these international kids that we've been able to touch, I wanted to write down some of those stories. So as I started, I thought, gosh, I better find out if I'm even doing hospitality. What is the real meaning of the word? And so that was really the first I had looked up the word, and I was so relieved to find that the meaning of philoxenia, which our word hospitality comes from, does not mean entertaining. It means loving strangers as family, as you said. And not that that's completely easy, but it's a lot easier than entertaining. And it's a lot easier than holding these standards that we've set up for ourselves and looking to the left or the right, who's doing it better. Loving strangers as family has to just come genuinely from our hearts. And that's why I'm excited about that concept. I want others to get excited about that.
I love that. I love deep diving into the origin of the words and where they actually came. So like even disciple created discipline, but really disciple means to teach and learn, right? So
Yeah.
it's really, really interesting when we get into the history of these words and actually how much love was behind a lot of the words that maybe have lost some of that meaning. So it's really great to have people like you that are sharing that love and helping people feel love, which is really what hospitality is. So you have a story. Can you share a story that illustrates that point really well?
Well, my signature story that I've begun to share, it happened when I was a college student and I was in France on a study tour. And I had traveled with another friend prior to the term, and we had determined to get together. This friend was at a different location. She was in Toulouse. I was in Bourges, France. So on the appointed weekend, I had sent her an email letter, not email, but airmail, back in the days of airmail. And I didn't wait for her reply because I knew the postage was always slow in France. What I didn't realize is that there had been a postal strike. So I arrived in Toulouse, France, expecting her to meet me at the train station. And being a stupid college student, I brought no money with me.
Oh.
I had some traveler's checks, but I arrived in at this train station and started calling numbers that I had, used up all my available cash, just like desperately, like someone in this program has to be home. And I had maybe 15 other phone numbers. No, just no response until I got in touch with one person who said, "Oh, this is a holiday weekend in Toulouse. All these students have gone away. There is no one from your program here." And so I was kind of terrified. I hung up the phone, and actually a 5 franc piece came out. It was like I had put a quarter in and now I've got $1.25. And God was saying, trust me, it's going to be okay. I was still pretty terrified. So I tried to see if I could get back on a train. They said, no, not for 24 hours. Your ticket won't be good until tomorrow. It was like,
Oh.
okay, so I have no money. I started going to little hotels. They said, I don't think we can take a traveler's check. I finally got one that said maybe, but come back in 2 hours. So I'm thinking, where do you go? I went to the park across the street and I sat down looking very naive, which I was, and trying to regroup. And a very creepy guy, there are strangers, danger people out there, but not
Oh,
too
yeah,
many. He started approaching, and I'm thinking, where in the world will I go? Well, I see an old peasant woman sitting on a bench on the other side of the park, and I got up to walk over towards her. And as I approached, I saw this like, I saw her getting up, and I don't know, I'm not a very good actor, but instead of like walking away, she looked at me and she just threw her arms open, motioned for me to sit down next to her on the bench. And the two of us chatted for over an hour. And about an hour into it, she looks up at me. She's this tiny little woman with a scarf on and everything, and says, "You must be hungry." And she pulled out a loaf of bread. She breaks it in half. She takes one of her two bananas, wraps it in a bag for me, two slices of her 4 slices of cheese, and then just says, "Be well," and gets up and walks away. And I thought, oh my goodness, that is philoxenia. That is loving a stranger as family. She treated me as if I were her long lost granddaughter, despite the age difference, despite the economic difference, despite the language difference, despite the culture. She made room, not that she was expecting me, not that she had a feast prepared, but I was a stranger in need, and she loved on me. And and so I use that experience because that's what it's about. You don't have to have the house. You don't have to have a big or a small house. You don't, she didn't even own the park bench. Um, but she made room, and she took away what barriers there were that she could take away, because I was someone in need. And that's what I've found in America, in the US today. Our Surgeon General says that
ridiculously.
1/2 of all Americans are suffering the effects, either physical or mental, from loneliness and isolation. That means if you've got 3 people in a room, possibly even 2 of them, um, are feeling desperately in need of something, which means someone's got to get started and initiate that connection and that love. And who better than us?
Yes, yes. And it is about connection because I think I've definitely been in places where I've been surrounded by people and felt completely alone and isolated. So it's not even just being in the vicinity of other people, it really is that connection piece. My background's in health and safety, and then I specialize in psychological safety. And the the number one factor in healing from trauma, from addictions, from anything is community. And that means
That's it.
connection. Connection is what keeps us anchored. It's part of what helps us. Um, build resilience because it doesn't feel so lonely. When we're lonely, it feels like everything's on our shoulders. But when we're connected to other people, it makes a big difference. So,
That's right.
yeah.
And the majority of people are safe people. That's what we have to get over. Yes,
Yeah.
there's some creepy people out there, but we have discernment, and and it is not everyone. But we have gotten very fearful, and social media has done that. Too much, even just TV has done that, everything's a Crime Stopper show because everything is there to be a crime to be happening to us. And the fact is, most of our neighbors are pretty decent people. Most of the people you're going to meet at the grocery store are people just like you who live in your neighborhood who need food to eat, um, and and would really benefit from a connection of some simple eye contact, a simple smile. Those things can really change the atmosphere.
Hmm. Absolutely. The statistics show that actually our world is safer than ever, and that less and less and less happens between strangers and between people that maybe we other in media or ourselves, even intentionally or unintentionally. Why why are we so hostile to those we don't understand? What are we afraid of by learning about how someone else lives, feels, navigates the world? Why is that so scary to us?
That's such a good question because a lot of times our inner notions are just based on lies, and and we become afraid of things we don't really even know what we're afraid of. And I think COVID certainly added to that, where we were told that even our family and our loved ones and our support structures make might be dangerous. And I mean, that was a lie. I mean, I believe in good health. I believe in masking. I got
I do
vaccinated,
too.
and I love everyone who did and didn't. But the whole fear factor was really bad for all of us. And then the ideological thing too. Here in the U.S., we're coming up on a presidential election, and I get information to a point from both sides just to see that the scare tactics are the same. And why we do that is just it literally hurts my stomach. Because we feed on fears. We feed on fears that this person and whatever they believe is going to really ruin your life, and your children won't have bread or something. I don't know what it is, but it's so often the misinformation has been fed to us, sometimes just for political purposes or gain. And that gets complicated, and we can't go
Yeah.
there now, except to say I have learned from an early age, and even that with my children. I have three sons, one daughter. And in God's good grace, He made my daughter very different from me. And so, starting at about age 4, I'd see her acting in ways, and I would say, "What are you thinking?" Um, my oldest son is not at all like my husband. He's like me. And so my husband would say, "What is he thinking?" And I'd say, "Well, this is what he's thinking." And he'd say the same with my daughter. And so we both learned, like, oh, instead of going, "What are you thinking?" The fact is, a lot of people think differently than us. And that's okay. And they do have their reasons, and they're very valid reasons. We might not like them, but they're valid reasons for thinking the way they think.
Yeah.
Part of it is an internal wiring, part of it is a lifelong experience and stories that we don't know unless we ask about them. And so to approach our neighbors as, "Tell me your story. I want to understand you better." Even if it's about the sign on your lawn, or whatever. Help. I just really want to understand. And if we go with a
Information. Yes.
with a curiosity, with an honest um, understanding that they are a human being just like we are. You know, you might get a chance to tell your story and engage in dialogue that brings us all to a better place. But to immediately cut off. That's the meaning of prejudice. That's the meaning of xenophobia. If philoxenia is loving strangers, xenophobia is that fear of strangers just because it's a fear. And there's really no basis for that.
No, and I think it's actually, this is just a theory. I'm not an expert in this, but my theory is that an empty space will get filled by something. So we can't, if we're already starving of connection and we're lonely, and this is an epidemic in the world, but especially in North America right now. So that is empty. And if someone brings along a fear that ties into something that maybe catches us, it can feel like connection. So it feels this void, but it's not actually filling it because you rely on this feed of fear in order to stay connected. And so it can be really, that's why when we get into control tactics and that type of thing, that's why fear is so powerful, I think. But if we have connection and we have a basis, then we can actually look at fear with curiosity and see things as just information without assigning a instant emotion to it. I always say that the opposite of fear is bravery, but bravery isn't domination. It is curiosity. That's the behavior of courage, is to get curious, because when you get curious, you might have to look within, you might have to look outside. We have to look at our own role, but that's where society can function well when we're all sort of mutually responsible for each other, right?
Yeah. And honestly, the studies show that the happiest people are those who are connected in
Yes.
community, those that are giving to others, not withholding their stuff. And we just get so warped. We are afraid to let people see our vulnerable selves. We're afraid of, like, we get the new couch because we want the pictures of it, but we don't want anyone to sit on it, and let alone, like, spill something on it. And you're like, what is that about? That's just wrong. And yes, it hurts. It's like the first dent in the new car. But the fact is that car gets you from here to there. You're not going to go without a car because there's a dent in it. And actually, the first one becomes the relief factor. It's like, okay, it's not perfect anymore. Now I can let my kids borrow it. But you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so let's invite people in over our thresholds. People laugh, like, so how do you do it? I said, well, if my desk is really bad, I just throw a blanket over it.
I've done the same. I've got the laundry basket. I just fill it with the stuff and put it in the closet. It's there. I
That's
can deal with it.
exactly what laundry baskets are for. Just remember, I lost them back in the days of plane tickets. I had lost my plane tickets buried in a laundry basket somewhere but but that works. And then the fear of, like, I'm not the best cook, and you just see so much again on Pinterest and these cooking shows that every one of us should be able to do that. I'm like, no, we don't. And the majority of us can't and won't and shouldn't. So let's just connect. Let someone else do the cooking. Keep the small bakery in town in business, or even the supermarket. Keep the Uber driver in business. Let him drop something off, but just look him in the eye when you take the food. Appreciate that it still takes human connection, and then invite someone in, and just be curious, get to know their stories. They begin to connect on a deeper level. Even the people in our household, kids, teenagers, with teenagers, they can be kind of intimidating, either for parents or grandparents. There are so many ways to just ask them what they're thinking about, ask them to tell you what's going on in their world, and try to get them disengaged from their screens. And it's a win-win for everyone.
Yes. Yes. Touch a little grass. Feel a little fresh air once in a while, right? Pull your head up and just look what's here. Oh my goodness, there's my cat. They're beautiful, right? All these things. There's little things of joy everywhere we look if we're willing to take a moment and look for them. What are
There
what
are
are yeah.
And I was just
So
going to say, and to share some of those moments with joy
yes.
in case someone didn't see it. I love it when someone points out, like, oh my gosh, I saw the Northern Lights last night. I'm like, in Atlanta? That's so cool. And they had these pictures like, wow. Or just noticing, yeah, something, even a wildflower on your walk in your neighborhood, like, how cool is that? Just a little bit of beauty. Share it with someone. Yeah, those are
I
such
love it.
good things.
Can I share an example? Just if
Yes.
it's okay. The other day I was having sort of a tough day work-wise. And so I was home and I was sort of like, I felt the anxious energy. So I decided to go for a walk. And while I was going for a walk, we have a lot of the Canadian geese. They're getting ready to fly
Mm.
south, of course. So they're flocking in like big numbers. So there's feathers everywhere. So I started picking up a couple feathers. And then I started picking up a couple odd wildflowers that were lying around in different colored leaves. And then I came home and I made myself like a little bouquet and I put it in my office where I wanted to feel a little more relaxed. And then I took pictures of it and shared it with a friend who really loves nature, who lives far away. And yeah, and then they were like, that is so beautiful. What a great idea. Then they make a bouquet of their own. And it just, it is, I know we say negativity is infectious, but so is positivity and joy and happiness, right?
Absolutely. And the whole thing, one of my things that I just hope people will learn to do is just wherever space you're in the grocery store, um, smile, because that facial mimicry, I mean, that's actually the way we're wired. We're created that if you smile, someone is probably going to smile back, and that act sends dopamine,
It
which
does,
makes you
yeah.
want to smile. And then all of a sudden you've affected a whole bunch of people, and you've begun to change the atmosphere around you. And we
Mhm.
can be those change agents, by offering a little bit of loving a stranger's family. Think of it as, I look at strangers as like, whoa, this is this might be a family member that I don't, that you don't know, but think of the ones that you do love and would love to see just pop up in front of you, and say, I'm going to love that person in front of me just like that. And um, that just becomes a very fun thing to do, and it's not just for extroverts. Introverts can do it too,
Yes.
and because we all need connection.
Mhm.
Maybe we extroverts can do it twice as long, but it is for everyone. And even my most introverted people, who I just love because they are so gifted in so many things that I am so good at holding their tongue, which I am not. But they love connection. We
Mhm.
all love.
Yeah, and I think what I love about introverts is the ability to love connection with ourselves too. Like it's so interesting to maybe be in a space by themselves, but not feel super alone. Like they can draw connection and they learn to enjoy themselves, which again makes them help enjoy other people and teaches other people be like, hey, maybe I should like my own company too once in a while, right? Like it's all about love. It's all about love and what we need and meeting ourselves where we're at. So are there how do we get over that fear of opening the doors and the spaces? I know you mentioned like smiling. Is there any other tips that you'd like to share with the audience if there's someone
Yeah,
nervous about?
I found it's really important to kind of examine, take just even 5 minutes, write down, like, how did I get to why don't I like opening my door?
Hmm.
And some people have stories that do make it hard. Friends who grew up in alcoholic households where it was not safe. It was never modeled. You never felt like you could invite anyone into your space. And you honestly didn't want anyone to ask you how you were doing because it was very painful. Well, that might have been true then. Is it still true now for you? Um, if it is, yeah, it's not the right season to be inviting the world in. And but let that be a
Open
sign that
house. Yeah.
but you need to get some healing. You need to get some healing
Yeah.
from those hurts and those memories. If it's just like, I'm just too busy, um, spend some time with your calendar, open up some spaces. to do that. But we have to do that little self-examining. Is it, oh, because I heard something and it just scared me. And so now it's this wild thought that's grown in my head that I have to realize that's a lie. That's not true. And so the self-examination comes first, and then just courage, summon up some courage to make one change that week. I'm going to smile someone at the grocery store, or I am going to think about in the next 2 weeks inviting a neighbor over. And because the rewards for getting to know your neighbors, again, you don't have to be best friends, you don't have to be in each other's business, but to know who your neighbors are, to at least know their names, have a phone number, makes your neighborhoods like 100% safer. You know who belongs there. If something goes wrong, and in this day of power outages and floods, it's really important to know who your neighbors are and who can be of help or who you need to be checking on. I mean, if something happened to one of my elderly neighbors and I just like, oh gosh, I didn't even know they were there, I would feel horrible. So, those kind of things. So take a baby step, say, I'm going to open my door just a little bit in the next 2 weeks. And then do it. Just do it. And you find it really does become contagious. You begin to feel more at home in your own house. You see the effect it has on the people around you. And it's, you just don't want to stop once you get started.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a friend once that stopped inviting people into their home because they loved having photos of their family and their walls were covered in photos of family. But people would come in and be like, wow, this is a lot, or it's overwhelming, it's cluttered. They would make not nice comments. So she stopped inviting people in. And I'm like, what if you tell them why? Right? Like if someone makes a comment on that, be like, I love being surrounded by the people that I love. And this is a way that I do that. Like, they're not gonna say anything more, right? Like it's such a beautiful reason, and what a beautiful
Yes.
way for even other people to be like, wow, like I have a lot of love in my life, right? So if you have someone that is, say, because extroverts, we tend to adopt introverts. So if you have someone that's like willing to potentially open their home for the first time, be like, do you want to come over for a cup of tea? How can we encourage people and make new, wonderful experiences for them being hospitable? How can we help people that maybe feel a little uncomfortable, but they're trying?
Yeah. Um, well, go if you get an invitation,
Yes.
for sure. And um, and do the eye contact thing. Um, yes, it's not about getting compliments, but just let people know you're just happy to be with them.
Yes.
Uh, make those human connections. Um, if you've been hurt or they've been hurt before, encourage forgiveness, laugh about the stuff that's gotten broken, or, again, turn the conversation to away from the stuff and onto the humanness, the humanity that we share. And I've just found that those those things matter when people feel seen, when they feel you just want to be there for them. That yeah, don't make comments about what they've got on their walls. That's kind of dumb. But if you've made that comment, then please apologize next time you go and just say, I just missed your presence. Let's try this again. Um, but that's what humanness is about. We step on each other and we make mistakes and we spill grape juice on the white rug and or leave the scar on the wood floor. And I've got all those things. And when I let that stuff go and then look at the amazing human beings that I've had the chance to interact with, that's what matters in the end.
It really
Yeah.
does. Where can people find you, Annie? and find your
Okay,
books?
I have a fledgling website called anniebooks.com.
Mhm.
And I'm also on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and those kind of places, just Annie McCune. And my book is at Barnes and Noble and Amazon.com. So
And what's the
um,
name of the book again, just to remind
it's
me?
called Practicing Hospitality, the Joy and Grace of Loving Strangers. And my husband made that nice sign. Isn't he
It's so
sweet?
pretty. You did a good job. You did a great job. Good.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
So
Obviously, yes.
yeah, but it's
Terrific.
just been delightful. Thank you for letting
My
me spend this half
pleasure.
hour with you. I am filled with
Thank
joy at
you.
getting to know you a little bit, and um, thank you for doing a podcast because I think you reach a lot of people with just beautiful thoughts and help us all thrive a little bit better.
Thank you. Thank you. I try to be a hospitable host.
I'm feeling it, feeling the love.